Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to read to you a Rags to Riches review written by Tom Decker, the producer and designer of the game. I was going through my archives and I realized I've hardly ever said anything about Rags to Riches. I think I have one video on the making of, which I'll link below. And I think I mentioned it in a couple other videos where it just, as an aside, oh, by the way, Rags to Riches, this. And I'll post a video or post a link at the bottom to in the description to the Rags to Riches playlist, which doesn't have many videos in it. Thought I'd fix that. Rags to Riches was the third game I made in my career and the second game I made at Interplay. And it was a business simulation, which wasn't exactly, high on my list of things to do. I tried to get switched with another programmer, Mark Whittlesey. He was doing Lord of the Rings, which I'd read a million times, and he was an economics major, and we wanted to switch, and we couldn't switch. So I ended up making Rags to Riches, and I found an Interplay newsletter dated June of 1993 with an article called Rags to Riches, a slightly biased feature review by Tom Decker, and I wanted to read it to you. So here goes. It's Fun Friday. Let's do it. In the tradition of SimCity, Railroad Tycoon, and Civilization, Interplay introduces the next great strategy simulation, Rags to Riches. At least that's the way I see it. But as the producer-designer of the game, I suppose that I would. Rags to Riches is a stock market simulation game where you get to fulfill your yuppie fantasies and make your wildest, richest dreams come true. In fact, if we hadn't tried so hard to make the game gender-free, you would have been able to upgrade wives. The truth is, the original subject matter may seem a little dry, but we've tried to spice it up with lots of humor, entertainment, great sound effects, and amazing artwork. In its final days before release, Rags to Riches has come a long way, and we feel it has potential to be a big, big hit. The original design, hashed out from several long meetings, was created by myself and Lee Ardrey, a stock market wizard now working for Smith Barney, who developed a board game called Speculation. The original design for Rags to Riches was loosely based around the board game, and how the game has changed since then. As with any truly great product, there are many creative and talented people involved, and Rags to Riches is no exception. Let me introduce the people involved in this product, since they really won't get the credit they deserve anywhere else. Tim Kaine, also known as Dr. Rackethead. I can't imagine what this product would have been like without Tim Kaine. Much more than just the programmer, Tim put in his own style and sense of humor. Even though Rags to Riches is not the type of game he'd play, Tim plodded forward in development and turned the game into something really great. In the end, Tim put in as much design as Lee Ardrey and myself. Despite his long bout with chickenpox just 3 weeks before its scheduled release, Tim came back, working lots of overtime and weekends to get the product out. Tim Kaine, he's just not for installs anymore. Chris Jones. Chris unobtrusively put as much into the game, or if not more, than anyone. Always hiding behind the scenes, it seems like nobody other than Tim Kaine really knew what Chris was doing. I probably don't fully know myself other than his vast contributions to the design and the artwork. Chris originally began as my assistant as he entered in all the events for the game as written by Lee Ardrey. Soon Chris was involved in every design meeting, adding suggestions and ideas for the game. When we finally got the artwork going for this, we were dealing with something totally new, scanned artwork. Chris took on the monstrous task of scanning, touching up, and getting palettes to match of every painting done for the game. If you're looking for someone to help you with scanning, Chris is your man. Sorry for that, Chris. You'll probably have more people bugging you now. Now a scripter for Star Trek, Chris continues to put in support for Rags to Riches when he can, or when Rusty lets him. Wes Yanagi and Rusty Buchert. Poor Wes was stuck for a while between the desks of me and Tim Kaine, so he got to hear a lot of what was going on in this project, and being the game player and designer that he is, he started putting in some of his own suggestions. Rusty, who seems to have a hand in every project at Interplay somehow, also managed to put some ideas through. The reason I put these two together is I can't remember who contributed what, but the two truly great ideas that came from these two were the ideas of hiring a staff and buying material acquisitions. These two concepts are so fundamental to the game now that I can't imagine the game without them. It just really goes to show how a great game can benefit from including and listening to the ideas and suggestions of other people. I'm just grateful these two took the time to listen in and help out. Many others helped out with little design changes and suggestions as well. Steve Wynn, plugged in some of the initial events. Carrie Garrison and Vince DiNardo gave some buying and selling tips. And all the playtesters contributed to making the game what it is today. I'm sure there were others, but the list is getting very long. Chris Takami and Ron Harris of Little Gangster Entertainment, these guys were responsible for all the artwork that got scanned in. The art turned out far better than anyone could have imagined, and they took the time to get all the 1929 scenario art chronologically correct. Rarely did I have to send back any art, and most of it I would approve from the very first line sketch. The icon artwork went through several generations, from original ideas from Jason Ferris to the final stuff provided by Brian Giberson, Spencer Kipe, all in his spare time, and Todd Kamasta. Scott Beezer contributed all the wonderful animations, touch-ups, and some of the icons, too. I must include the last-minute contributions of David Mosier and Molly Talbot to get the CES demo out the door. In the end, the hodgepodge of artists put together a beautiful game that looks amazingly consistent considering all the hands involved. And thank God, too, or we'd all be stuck with Tim Kane's line art. Charles Deanan and Rick Jackson, these two put together all the music and sound effects that really make the game great. It amazes me how all the little sound effects that Charles put in really do work. I think we all felt that having a different type of phone ring for each type of drawn phone was totally unnecessary. But now that you see it in the game, you can't imagine it without them all. Doors openings and slamming shut, secretaries buzzing you with messages, cash registers ringing, they're now all part of the fun. And the radio blaring out music from Rick Jackson adds another dimension to the game as well. Fred Royal. A late addition to the crew, Fred as my assistant had to fill in for me while I was away making critical and final decisions. Fred was forced to take the brunt of abuse in my absence and managed to pull out of it okay. Well, that's the majority of the talent behind the game. I think we've really put together the type of game that can be very addicting as you try to figure out what's going on. With the addition of the 1929 scenario, it's educational as well. You can play through the actual historical events that led up to the great stock market crash of 1929. Of course, the modern-day scenario requires some financial education to interpret the events and their effects too. However, if you want to play it illegally and plant informants in other companies and participate in insider trading or just try to corner the market, you can without learning a thing about economics. It's up to you. All the elements are there for a big hit, and from all of us involved, we hope you have fun with it. Thanks, Tom Decker. Special thanks and inspiration from Caesar Salads, especially from Marie Callender's, Islands Burgers, Disc Golf, A Day at Casa Machado, and Hot Summer Days. Special no thanks to Temperamental Actors, The Interplay Thief, Jetlag, and the Chickenpox. Anyway, I thought you guys would like to hear that. That is a perfect example of the humor and style of what early 90s Interplay was like. Plus, I loved that I could add something to my Rags to Riches videos that wasn't from me, even though it did make fun of my line art, which I thought was pretty good, but not a single other person did. Anyway, that's your Fun Friday.